Welcome back to the Combo Couch, everyone. Pasta Jardula here.
And I'm Fiorella.
And Oz is hanging on out. No overalls today. We got a great shirt on, a good hat. He's dropping just knowledge left and right, fam. We don't have it in the deck, but Oz alerted me before the show, and this is why you got to watch War Media, Shanda Master, Amber, and Oz, is that Biden has actually put more troops back into Somalia. Did you hear this?
Yes, I did. He's invading Somalia. This is what I want to say about that, because we're going to probably talk about it. If you don't talk about it tomorrow, we'll talk about it Wednesday. I won't be here tomorrow. But Pasta will be here, hopefully with a very special guest that I really like.
Confirmed. Neb is confirmed. He just confirmed.
Neb is great. Yeah. Not to be confused with Jeb. Jeb's another great guy, not Jeb Bush, but another Jeb. But Neb is great. He's really great. But guys,
talk about the Kosovo War, by the way, in Serbia, Bosnian. He's from that area, so we're going to do a Serbian Bosnian conflict for idiots, because it has a lot to do, fam. I think what's going on in the Ukraine today, we can look at the parallels and kind of educate ourselves a little bit more on what's going on. So sorry to interrupt you.
No, so I was just going to say, the United States has continuously talked about how dare Putin invade Ukraine, how this was absolutely unprovoked. Putin is just trying to exert all his power into Ukraine. And months later, the US invades Somalia, even though Somalians and Ethiopians and everybody in that region has been coming together and telling the US to get the hell out and stop interfering in their countries, right? We ran into them when we were in DC recently. I did. And they were having an anti-war protest against NATO's interventions in particularly Somalia and Ethiopia. So I was trying to get somebody to talk about that. And I've been asking, but I haven't had luck yet, because I knew the elections were coming up. Gloria Jones also mentioned it, but I haven't had luck. So if you guys have anybody you want to suggest to talk about Somalia, because I reached out to a couple people that I thought would, but I haven't seen anybody. But it's a really important thing, and it was expected for the U.S. to get involved. But I mean, look how quick the Democrats are involving themselves. And this is why I say at this moment, Democrats are the party of warmongers more, I think, than Republicans. Although, as Pasta will show you, they're both owned by the MIC. So,
I mean, is there any argument right now, too?
No.
Our boy Shadow Man, we don't agree with him on everything, but we agree with him on a lot of things. He reads a lot of bills, goes through some stuff. He's got a great video out there. I believe they broke down almost a year ago the PRO Act. I think if you haven't seen that one, go see that. A couple election integrity bills were out there. Shadow Man alerted me to, and we talked about them, as well as the infrastructure bill. He was all over that. But in this next handout, this money that's being delayed by Rand Paul right now, there's just a blank check pretty much, fam, for the military industrial complex. You know what I'm saying? Very little will go to the actual Ukraine or Ukrainians and whatnot. It's going to go to the military industrial complex with no oversight whatsoever. Just a blank check. Go ahead. Go. I don't want to care what you did with it. I don't want to know what you do with it. Just go run off and play. Here's $40 billion. And now if this $40 billion goes through, it's like $58 billion since this whole freaking thing started. It's ridiculous now at this fucking point. Everything we've been saying, this has been going on for 2014. So it's just ridiculous at this point, fam.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. But again, this is part of the plan. This is all part of what they're trying to do. And we're going to talk about that. But do you want to go ahead and get started?
I do want to get started. But before we get started, ladies and gentlemen, we need you to do us a favor. We need you to like it and share it right now. Obviously, because of what we put in the title, we're going to get suppressed. There's a lot of stuff going on. We understand that right now. But our fans out there, our friends, our subscribers, the people who love us and keep us going, thank you so much. Do us a favor. Hit the like button now. Hit the share button. There's a lot of stuff going on. In between the sections, we'll talk about the immediate future and what the fams and I are doing over here at the Convo Couch. A lot of you already know. But do us that favor right now. Help us beat back this shadow banning and this suppressing and whatnot. We have less than 100 people watching, and that's like right now we'd have like 200 people in the door already. It's ridiculous with these freaking people. They just recently turned off the faucets on our subscribers again on YouTube. So help us out. Like, share, subscribe. Fee, the floor is all yours.
Right. So, guys, I'm going to be covering this from several aspects because whenever something like this happens, I'm extremely naturally questioning as to the timeline of everything and everything that's going on simultaneously with it, right? Not everything, of course, is a false flag, but at the same time, you have to think about how these certain incidents that happen are used to further take away our civil liberties every single time and our civil rights. And mass shootings have a tendency to do that, to bring up the talk about gun control again, to talk about how America has a problem with white supremacy, particularly with this shooter that was an 18-year-old avowed white supremacist. And it's kind of interesting because I read the entire 180-page manifesto. I did skim over the parts about the guns because that wasn't really relevant to the information that I'm presenting today, but everything else that was written out. And I have some parts of it here that we're going to go over, but the politicians in mainstream media have been condemning him as a white supremacist shooter that shot 10 and killed 10 people in Buffalo and injured several others. And they have simultaneously been dismissing that this person had a lot of connections and different and similar beliefs to what members of the Azov battalion and the other Nazi elements in Ukraine have. So there was a lot of hypocrisy going on, and we're going to discuss some of that. So just basically, first, we're going to go over the basic facts of what happened, because I guess you do have to start with like the basic facts. So this 18-year-old shot and killed 10 people in Buffalo, New York, and it was called the Tops Friendly Market where this took place, and 11 out of the 13 people shot were Black, okay? And a lot of people are now claiming, right, this is a hate crime. This is motivated by race. And this isn't the first time this has happened. This happened at the church before. We've had this happen at a synagogue. So this isn't anything new in terms of that. This is why all of those incidents that happened were also used to put out the domestic violent extremists that we saw in 2020 after the January 6th attacks. So allegedly, he had made this manifesto, right, describing his motive and why he was going to do that. And according to CNN, the statements were clear and filled with hate towards the Black community. Investigators uncovered other information from search warrants indicating that he was studying previous hate attacks and shootings, which he did. He named several other people that shot had mass shootings, including some of the more predominant names that we've seen in the last recent years. And so the victims were between the ages of 20 and 86. And among them was a former police officer who tried to stop the shooter, who was in his 80s. And he was the one that was outside and then went inside to try to get him. So the suspect was identified as Peyton S. Gendron. He is an 18-year-old from Cockland, New York. He drove several miles to actually get there. And he wrote his white supremacist manifesto online and live streamed the whole thing. So we have the video, but we can't show the video on YouTube because we would get taken down, because it's been taken down everywhere. And so they think this is a hate crime, and he surrendered to police. He had the gun to his neck, and then he took it down and surrendered, and he's being charged with first-degree murder, and he pled not guilty. Even though we're going to see in his manifesto, he said he would plead guilty. And they say he's under a suicide watch. Now, Kathy Hochul, one of the most authoritarian governors of the entire country, said that they were giving $2.8 million in federal funding for the victims and their families. And this is what she said, and I want people to note her language. The past 24 hours have been traumatizing for New Yorkers, and my administration will spare no effort to ensure the victims of this act of terrorism by a white supremacist are receiving all the resources and support they need. The entire world is watching how we will come together as New Yorkers to overcome this unthinkable tragedy. So again, white supremacist this, white supremacist that, right? Okay. So he had been buying ammo. He said he didn't get serious till recently, January of this year. And he talks a lot about the Great Replacement. Now, the Great Replacement is an entirely different thing than the Great Reset. I've seen people use them interchangeably, and it only does a disservice for when we talk about these things. The Great Replacement is this fear that the white population is getting replaced by minorities and other people of color, and that it is white genocide, right? And it's here where they start pivoting to Tucker Carlson, how this is a talking point for Fox News host Tucker Carlson, as well as many prominent conservatives. So as you can see, that's where they're going with this, right? CNN also talked about his gear. He was all geared up. He arrived at the store around 2:30 p.m. and he had the helmet. He had the camera that was live streaming his actions. He had an assault weapon. So he had an assault rifle. And he first shot 4 people outside of the store, and 3 of them died from their wounds. And then when he entered the store, that's when he started fighting with the armed security guard. And then he shot more people, 6 of whom also died. So that's how you get to the total number. Now, here's the thing. This is where it takes kind of like, for me, a really weird situation, because he started live streaming this attack, right, on Twitch. We get banned on Twitch, and a lot of people get banned on Twitch for cursing, right? Something as stupid as cursing. He was able to live stream this on Twitch. And yes, they took it down eventually, but he was able to do it live. And I find that really interesting, and I find that really suspect coming from a platform as strict as Twitch that has banned people for saying like curse words. So that's interesting. Twitch accordingly said that they were devastated to hear about the shooting and said that the user has been indefinitely suspended from their service and that they're taking appropriate action, including monitoring for any accounts rebroadcasting the content. So now we're not allowed to see the content. I don't know, Pasta, if you have anything to say about the Twitch thing.
Well, I'm just going to say this one thing really quickly. I'm going to let you keep going on because I'm taking a ton of notes, and I'll take some time up at the end. But they said, oh, now you're not allowed to see it. It's been out there. A lot of people have seen it for quite some time. I have a feeling that they wanted you to see this one.
Right.
Really, it was too easy to see this one. Now they might make it a little difficult after everybody saw it, but everybody's enraged from it. But just to kind of point that out there, that it was like, And when you see this one, you get very, very angry. Go ahead, Fam.
Right. Okay. So now we're at the point where we're going to discuss this manifesto, right? And we're literally just discussing what is written there. I'm not putting, anything into it. I will say a couple of things I find very interesting and timely with everything that's going on. So this is a black sun. This is what we're going to talk about in a minute, that people who have been covering Russia and Ukraine were pointing out. This is exactly much of the insignia that the Azov battalion wears. And this is a Nazi symbol. And he has it on his manifesto, where it says, you wait for a signal while your people wait for you. This also reminded me very much about the last Batman movie, where there is a scene in the movie, multiple scenes, where every single time this killer, right, goes out and kills people, he starts live streaming it. And that's part of it as well. Pasta, real quick, I got to plug my computer unplugged. So
I'll riff, and I'll talk about the manifesto too as well really quick, because I really, 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 really question a lot of these things, these manifestos, and they come out. It just, everything seems so complete and organized and order. And I'm not saying it's going to come from this gentleman whatsoever, but these things just make me very suspicious, because they provide all the weaponry, everything that they need, that the government needs or anybody needs to push forth on those civil liberties or those Second Amendment, restrictions, which is, something we always have to watch for. Fam, you ready?
Yeah. So first of all, I'm going to say this obviously happened. People obviously died. When people talk about false flags, that it doesn't mean that it didn't happen. It just means that there was a manipulation. And I'm going to go through the manifesto and I'm going to let people decide what for themselves. And then we're going to go through a couple things. But this is what it says. So he says, if there's one thing I want you to get from these writings, it's that white birth rates must change. Every day, the white population becomes fewer in number. To maintain a population, the people must achieve a birth rate that reaches replacement fertility levels in the Western world. That is about 2.06 births per woman. And he links to a Wikipedia article. The only white country that reaches these levels is Argentina at 2.247. Argentina isn't necessarily a white country, but historically, Argentina is the country where lots of Nazis escaped to. Argentina, parts of South America in general, but particularly Argentina was the heaviest. And when you go to South America, you will see a notable difference in the appearance of Argentinians versus literally everybody else. So even though it's technically not a white country, the majority of their population has more traces to Europeans than the majority of the populations elsewhere in surrounding it. And that's also part of, you know, the operation. So, okay. But not in Europe, not in the rest of the Americas, not in Australia or New Zealand. White people are failing to reproduce, failing to create families, failing to have children. But despite the sub-replacement fertility rate, the population in the West is increasing rapidly. How is this possible? Mass immigration and the higher fertility rates among the immigrants themselves are causing this increase in population. We're experiencing an invasion on a level never seen before in history. Millions of people pouring across our borders illegally, invited by the state and corporate entities to replace the white people who have failed to reproduce, failed to create the cheap. I think then he talks about labor and stuff. But I want to kind of just comment on that a little bit. The reason why Tucker Carlson is getting a lot of blame for this, for some people who are well-intended, is because Tucker Carlson has talked about the borders, right? He's talked about how there's too many people coming in and how they're allowing them in. And those are the times when I've disagreed with Tucker Carlson. And I've, you know, said, oh my God, this is disgusting on the shit he's saying, you know. However, it is interesting to me that that belief that does exist in a lot of conservative circles where they are afraid of being replaced by all these immigrants is so pointed out perfectly in the very first page of his manifesto. Either this guy really got influenced by this sort of thought process, which is totally possible, or you know, what? The other possibility is that somebody, you know, helped influence him. And then, of course, you for a specific narrative, for a specific point, because I'm not saying people don't believe this, because they do. There are a lot of people who believe that in these things, right? But you have to look at the timing of everything as well. So he says the crisis of mass migration and sub-replacement is an assault on the European people that, if not combated, will result in the complete racial and cultural replacement of the European people. To see this in full effect, you only have to look at the population statistics in the nations for the year 2050. So he goes on to talk about that. Then he talks about himself. He says, my name is Peyton Gendron. I was born on June 20th, 2003, which makes me 18 years old as of writing this. He's like so young. I am the sole perpetrator of the recent attempted mass shooting. That one right there is really interesting to me, because whenever there's a mass shooting, there's always a question of, was there multiple shooters? Were many people involved? Right off the bat, he says, I am the sole perpetrator of this attempted mass shooting. I lived in Southern Tier, New York all my life with both my parents and two brothers. I believe I am ethnically white, since my parents' nationalities are from Northwestern Europe and Italy. Sorry, pasta. I graduated high school with a Regents diploma with advanced designation, and am currently, I think he studies at enrolled in Sunny Brooms with a major in engineering science. I would love to continue this, but there are bigger problems I am more concerned with. I am not a war fighter, nor have I been enrolled in any military or tactical training. So excuse any mistake I make during my attack. I was never diagnosed with mental disability or disorder. The guy didn't have a record. He's 18, obviously. And I believe to be perfectly sane. I recently took an MBTI test as seen below. This is a test that all of us have taken, I think. I remember we all shared our results at MCSC. Pasta's an ENFP. I'm an ENFJ. I don't know everybody else's. Misty is like something, but we all realized like we're really similar, which is really interesting. But I love how he put that out there, right? I think it's interesting. And then he put his picture and he put that he showed himself as just like a white man seeking to protect and serve his community, his culture, his people, and his race. That is like, you know, that's part of their belief. They believe like this is, you know, we're the race we need to protect because we're genetically superior. And he goes on to talk about how the white race is genetically superior through genetics and phenotypes and all of this crap that we're not going to go over today. But there are some things that you know, he started talking about. Was he answered the questions from the people questioning him, because he was always on Reddit and 4chan. And he mentions this. 4chan is one of the go-tos for where liberals and a lot of people on the left say that, oh, anything from 4chan is this right wing, and they're creating this white supremacy and the incels and all of that. So it's very interesting to me that he's hitting every single check mark that a liberal or a leftist would be like, see, this is exactly why conservatives and Tucker Carlson and them must go. I just think it's so perfectly like every single check mark. So yeah. So he talks about wanting to reduce immigration rates to European lands by intimidating and physically removing the replacers themselves. This is why he's carrying out this attack. He wants to agitate political enemies. He wants to incite violence and further divide people between the European and the replacers. So he wants to divide and incite violence. And he's literally saying that that's what he wants to do. And he also says to create an atmosphere of fear and change in which drastic, powerful, and revolutionary action can occur. Notice how he uses the word revolutionary. To add momentum to the pendulum swings of history, destabilizing and polarizing Western society, to eventually destroy the nihilistic, hedonistic, and individualistic insanity that has taken control of Western thought. Interesting how he's using individualistic in this sense, in the negative sense, right? Because normally individualism is what libertarians and some of the right get like chastised for. Oh, you don't care about other people. You don't care about giving healthcare to people. In this sense, he's saying individualism is destroying them because they need to care about the white race and this collective good. And what does he want? He wants to ensure the existence of their people and the future for white children. And also, who does he represent? Millions of European and other ethno-nationalist peoples that wish to live in peace amongst their own people, living in their own lands and deciding the future of their own kind. And they asked him if he's a part of any group or movement. He said he's not a member of any organization, though he supports it. And did he align himself with others? No, he's the sole perpetrator of this attack. He kept saying that. Anything on that, Pasta?
I'm gonna hold it all until the very end. I got all my notes here and stuff like that. And I've just been paying attention to the chat. But go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So he says, where did you most get your current beliefs? And he says the internet. This is like, I mean, if I'm reading this as a person that doesn't know everything I know, right? He said the internet. He talks about revolution. He talks about every single check mark that if I'm State Department, national security state, I'm like, oh, see, we can't have the internet be free anymore because this guy got his education off the internet. He said there was little to no influence on my personal beliefs by people I met in person. I read multiple sources of information from all ideologies and decided that my current one is most correct. Did you carry the attack out for fame? He said, I did it so I can influence others into defending themselves from the replacers. Why did you target those people? He says there are an obvious, visible, and large group of replacers from a culture with higher fertility rates and strong, robust traditions that seek to occupy my people's lands and replace my own people. It would have eased me if I knew all the blacks I would be killing were criminals or future criminals, but then I realized all black people are replacers just by existing in white countries. So this is what he wrote. And obviously that's ridiculous and terrible. But But it's just so awful that he's specifically signaling Black people when we know that the United States has this huge issue right now where when we talk about police shootings, when we talk about racism and all of that. I mean, it just falls perfectly into everything that we're talking about. Over what time span did you plan the attack? I've been passively preparing for this attack like every American does by having ammo, but not till January 2020. All right, so then they talk about the firearms. So I'll go to the next slide. Okay, so he talks about the place of attack. He had redacted it, and he didn't give it out right away. He said, "Do you consider this an attack of terrorism?" And he answered that he did, by definition, that it's a partisan action against the occupying force. Did you personally hate Blacks? He said, a Black man or woman living in their homeland, no, but them choosing to live in his lands, yes. And he said he hated more of the converts, those from our own people that turn their backs on their heritage and their cultures. So that's kind of like he sees anybody that is allowing this as the converts. And did you or do you personally hate foreigners or other cultures? He said, no, many people and their cultures are great, but it's important to note that they can only be great, stay great if they are separated from each other. So he believes in separation. Do you believe those you attacked were innocent? There is no non-white living on white lands that is innocent. So, I mean, clearly his belief is really, really there. And they asked him, was the attack anti-immigrant in origin? And he said, yes, beyond all doubt, anti-immigration, anti-ethnic replacement, and anti-cultural replacement. So he's basically telling people like that he's this racist, and he's very proud of what he stands for. Very much like the Azov battalion has zero problem telling people who they are and what they stand for, right? And he talks about the police officers that he said he didn't intend to kill them, but if he had to, it would make him upset. But many of them work for the elite. Notice how he mentions that they serve the elite. That's very interesting because a lot of the things we talk about the predator class, the elite, the 1% being in charge of this, right? And it says here he intended to plead guilty. He didn't. He's not a Christian. He considers himself a fascist. He considers himself a white supremacist. He considers himself racist. He considers himself intolerant because that's part of what the virtues of a dying nation. And are you an anti-Semite? And yes, he does. So he's hitting all the boxes. Look what he says. He says, I wish all Jews to hell, go back to hell where you came from, demon. And, and he has a whole section on Jews and Soros and all of this. He admits he supports neo-Nazism, but he isn't a member of any groups. Is he a conservative? No. He says, conservatism is corporatism in disguise. I want no part of it. Are you homophobic? He says, I believe that the problem involving the LGB, drop the T, are very insignificant. If one is actually part of the LGB group and they are loyal to their people, that is fine with me. Transgenderism, however, is a mental illness and should be addressed as such. So he's hitting all of again, more and more check marks. Are you right wing? Depending on the definition, sure. Are you left wing? Depending on the definition, sure. This part here was weird because it's like, normally you would read this and be like, oh, okay, right wing, white supremacist. He's saying no. He's saying he could be left wing, he could be right wing. And then they ask him if he's a socialist. And he says, depending on the definition. Workers' ownership of the means of production. It depends on who the workers are, their intentions, who currently owns a means of production, their intentions, and who currently owns a state and their intentions. So this guy fashions himself that he could be a socialist too. I don't know. If I were writing this to try to get every single group that's anti-establishment into the criminal fold, he's doing a great job. He's hitting every single possible threat to the status quo, whether it's on the right, these ultranationalist groups, or whether it's on the left, the socialist groups. By living in the United States, weren't you an immigrant yourself? He says, yes. Immigrants bring a host of issues, but then he talks about being that they're white and that's different. Is there a particular person that radicalized you the most? So he talks about this guy named Brenton Harrison Tarrant. and that Brenton's live stream started everything you see here. Brenton started my real research into the problems with immigration and foreigners in our white lands. Without his live stream, I would likely have no idea about the real problems the West is facing. So he puts down people that influenced him, which is great, because now they're going to say, oh, see, like, this is such a big problem. They're being influenced by other shooters. And were you taught this violence and extremism by video games, music, literature, cinema? No, only the truth caused me to seek violence. That's very interesting. What does he mean by the truth? The truth, you know, like things like on the internet that now they're trying to censor everything they can. So perhaps the truth is now going to be vilified even further, because that's what we've been seeing so far. So this is a very important part I want to read, because they ask him, did you always hold these views? And he says, when I was 12, I was deep into communist ideology. Talk to anyone from my old high school and ask about me, and you will hear that. From ages 15 to 18, however, I consistently moved further to the right. On the political compass, I fall in the mild, moderate, authoritarian left category, and I would be preferred to be called a populist. Guys, he literally hits every aspect. Anytime the you know, some of us talk positively about some conservatives and how like they kind of, we could sort of work with them on some issues, but not on others. And, you know, Pasta called them even once a populist, right? And like how they're just going with what most people in their country want. They're trying to figure out how to work together. He talks about the populist. He also talks about the authoritarian left. And he also talks about communism and having a belief in communist ideology and then moving to the right. So they're basically showing this. If he wrote this, I mean, this is like, he's basically laying it all out, that there's a pipeline from communism to like this white supremacy is basically what it looks like to me. And if I'm reading that and I have no idea about everything I have an idea of, and I'm like, wow, it seems like these extremist beliefs sort of lead you to become some sort of white supremacist, right?
Mm-hmm. I didn't know what I know, fam, is what you're saying.
But I know what I know. So I'm like, wait a minute, this is like really weird, that the timing.
Little sus.
And I'm just like, you know, and I'm not Steve. And I'm not Pasta. And I definitely, I have a different
off on you.
way of looking at things. But reading this manifesto really did it for me. Reading everything that happened and all the, you know, all the facts and everything, that didn't do it for me. Reading this manifesto, though, if you go through the manifesto and you see all the check marks this guy takes for the State Department, I'm just like, okay, so let's continue. I'll try to like be pretty quick about this. Were your beliefs given by your family, friends, society? And he said, no, politics was never discussed in my family or old friend group. Who do you consider white? Those that are ethnically and culturally European. Who do you consider non-white? Those who are not ethnically or culturally European. He doesn't consider himself a leader. Then he names all the other partisan freedom fighters and ethno soldiers. He names Brenton Tarrant, as he said, Patrick Crucis, John Ernest, Robert Bowers, Philip Manhouse, Luca Trainey, Anders Breivik, Dylan Roof, Anton Luden, Peterson, and Darren Osborne, etc. I never had any connections with the other confirmed partisans, though. And then he talks about how he's American, so why does he care so much about Europe? And he says the United States, just like the rest of the colonies of Europe, is simply an offshoot of the European people, a finger on the hands of the body of Europe. The origins of my language are European, my culture is European, my political beliefs are European, etc. And my blood is European. So there you go. That's why he thinks he's European. And he says, they ask him, what are your views? And he says, I would prefer to call myself a populist, but you can call me an ethno-nationalist, eco-fascist, national socialist if you want. I wouldn't disagree with you. So there, not only does he mention populism, he mentions socialism. And you know how a lot of people on the right have said, well, Hitler was a socialist. So, I mean, socialism is bad because Hitler was a socialist. And this whole thing, it's just so insane to me. He's pretty much making it a crime now to call, or at least a very suspect to call yourself any of these things. If you call yourself a populist, you call yourself a socialist, a communist, a left-wing whatever, then you could potentially be labeled as one of these people. And the State Department has started doing this for a while now, right? And January 6th was one of the events that they did use for that. So they ask him, are you a Fed, shill, Mossad, agent, fake, false flag, patsy, imposter, Antifa, 3-letter agent, blah, blah, blah. And he said, no, I don't think so. Who knows? Maybe it's the 2 shots of COVID vaccine juice going through my bloodstream that's really making me do this. It's healthy to have skepticism, but don't let your skepticism turn you away from people who support you. So this one right here too, maybe the 2 shots of COVID vaccine juice going through my bloodstream really making me do this. It's almost like he's mocking that. And we know from what's been happening this whole time that that's an ongoing thing. And I have a hard time believing that somebody would write that. It just seems so out of character to me.
Fam, what are you saying, fam?
It just seems extremely out of character the way this was typed out. It doesn't seem like an 18-year-old would do this. Now, if I'm a very smart 18-year-old, and there's a video that Pasta sent me, right? That this gentleman, this Black gentleman that talked to him for like 45 minutes the day before, claims to say that he was wearing a Genius shirt, and he concluded this guy was a genius just by talking to him. Now that very well could be, but this is very interesting. What do you encourage us to do? Make plans, get training, form alliances, get equipped, and then act. The time for meekness has long gone since past. The time for a democratic solution has long since passed. Men of the West must be men once more. This is right here, similar to when we were talking about January 6th and they were saying, oh, everybody's got to come up and go and show that we won't stand for this. And, and the whole mantra, you will not replace us. Just everything that exists. It's real. There are groups that are like that. We've seen them in Charlottesville and all of that, but not like this, and not in such a timely manner. And as we're finishing up here with this manifesto, I encourage you guys to go read it. I will put the link in the description.
Yeah, people are asking for the link. So
yeah, I will put the link in the description. Let me finish up reading this. I'll put it in the chat. Okay. And then Pasta, you can talk about what you're going to talk about. So won't your attack do more harm than good? No, there isn't a successful influential grand movement established just yet, and no leading organizations. So there is no great structure created that could be brought to harm. As for how the public perceives us, do they perceive us any different after the attack than they did before? Won't your attack result in calls for the removal of gun rights in the United States? Okay, this is the one. Yes, that is the plan all along. You said you would fight to protect your rights and the Constitution. Soon will come the time. Okay, so that part right there, well, duh. Like this is going to cause, again, the talk of taking people's guns away and blah, blah, blah. Now, the reason people don't want that is because we have a government that people don't trust. So people don't want to let go of the only protection they have. They want to be able to have the right to bear arms. They believe in the Second Amendment, and et cetera. And every time a mass shooting happens, they attempt to take more and more of those rights away. So he's saying that, yes, but that's the plan. When they take it away, you guys are going to fight back, right? So this is somebody that's, if he's real, he's trying to incite a civil war, what would happen if we have a civil war, guys? The government would literally take over and take everybody's shit away, and we would be under complete and total control of the state. That's what would happen if there was a civil war. Like it's just, that's what would happen. So it doesn't make sense that somebody that wants to have these rights strengthened would just go about doing it this way. Do you actually believe this garbage? Somebody asked. Yes, I have never felt more sure about anything else. Democracy is the only solution. Why are you committing to force? Democracy is a mob rule, and the mob itself is ruled by enemies. The global and corporate run press controls them. The education system long since fallen to the long march through the institutions carried out by the Marxists controls them. The state, long since heavily lost to corporate backers, controls them, and the anti-white media machine controls them. Do not suffer under the delusions of the efforts, riskless democratic victory Prepare for war, prepare for violence, prepare for risk, loss, struggle, death. Force is the only path to power and the only path to true victory. I mean, this is like, he talks about the corporate media. He talks about the Marxists feeding right into that, right? Feeding right along into that whole narrative. And he said, violence is the only way to make real change in the world. The reason why peaceful protests are allowed is because they don't make an actual difference. And then he talks about haplogroups, phenotypes, and globalized testing, talks about the racial differences, and then he goes on to talk about them. And then they ask him, why do you blame immigrants and not the capitalists? He says both are the problem. And I would like to address the concept of hard and soft targets here. Hard targets are people with strong political powers, such as the presidents, prime ministers, judges, media producers, and military leaders. Soft targets include the everyday man with low, weak political power. To cleanse an area, both must be removed. One cannot only attack the blacks of Buffalo and expect the Zogbot government to fall as well. Just as one cannot attack the Zogbot government, and he's talking about the Jews, and expect the blacks to fall. Both has to be addressed. I am simply attacking one at a time. And yeah, so let's move on to the very last one, so then I can put the link in the chat. And he said, they asked him, was there a particular event or a reason you decided to commit to a violent attack? Before I begin, I will say that I was not born a racist nor grew up to be a racist. I simply became a racist after I learned the truth. I started browsing 4chan in May 2020 after extreme boredom. Remember, this was during the outbreak of COVID. I would normally browse K because I'm a gun nut. And then, and he said there, I learned through infographics, shit posts, and memes that the white race is dying out. And then he talks about the elites, and he talks about, he found the World Truth videos and the daily archives. He says we are doomed by low birth rates. And he mostly would get his news from Reddit. He learned more and more and realized how serious everything was. And then, he mentions Brenton Tarrant again, and found the 17-minute live stream of him attacking the Al-Noor Mosque, and read his manifesto and agreed with a lot of it. And so, this is, he mentions 4chan. He mentions Reddit. He mentions extreme boredom and shit posting and memes. This is how things people do on the internet. Like everyday people, they go on these sites. It just seems so weird to me that that's being mentioned so specifically, that this guy would just mention every single thing that the State Department could use against us very specifically. And then there's a picture of his gun where it says BLM Mogged, and then you can see the names of some of the people he's admired. So Pasta, go ahead and take it away while I put this in the chat.
We're going to put that in the chat. Thank you, fam, for all that, laid that out, and doing all that work, reading that manifesto. Just kind of what some people said in the chat. We can go off this right now. This is a situation, we had some other videos, other things I want to talk about today, but I want to be very, very careful, right? I don't want to get us a strike today, get us taken down and whatnot. And these things, they get very, really tricky with YouTube. They're just waiting in the bushes, waiting to take people down. Well, let me just talk about some of the stuff some people said inside the chat, because they go along with a lot of the notes. And that's why, we talk about some of the MCSE across the board, our audience, our followers, and people in the chats, some of the smartest people. Steve Cutler did jump in right away and said, the manifesto seems sus. Yeah, it's Keel Jones in the Rockfin chat says the FBI who wrote his manifesto. And people also talk about why the FBI gets to continue to operate, why they get the budget they do and stuff. They have to have a reason for doing so, right? The more money they can get, the better. And these are things you have to look at. And Deep Space did ask, he said, was the FBI grooming this kid? And the almighty Antichrist said they certainly knew about him, which they did too as well. So they knew about him, number one. And a lot of people feel maybe, hey, he might have been groomed or something. That's it. Jilly Love mentioned MK Ultra. And Sterling said, what about Samuel Hyde? And this is something we talked about the other day. When it comes to that manifesto, it's, a lot of people are bringing up that name right now. So just go ahead and look into that yourself. I'm not going to talk about it more. But there are a lot of things that are kind of very suspect about that manifesto. When you didn't talk about the weapons, the funny thing about it is I think they were laying out a list of guns they want to ban. You know, if you go to slide 53 really quick, Oz, I just dropped a picture in there really quick. You know, the 3Ds or the 4Ds of the whole situation. When we have a crisis, they try to divide, disarm, distract. And in our case, they try to demonetize. But the weapons that could be banned and stuff like here's Kamala Harris right out of the gate, next target, banning AR-15 style assault weapons and stuff. So you hear this rhetoric come out every single time there is. And then you hear the conservatives always go, oh, a good guy with a gun. We need a good guy with a gun. And one of the things that's so suspect is taught that he went to this one particular area. And we did have the gentleman who we talked to for, it was actually an hour and 45 minutes with the Genius shirt on too as well. He passed through many black areas, fam, before he got to this one. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, that's something that Steve pointed out. And also something I want to point out too as well is that, you know, with somebody mentioning the MK Ultra thing, you don't even need to do that nowadays. You have people on edge. I mean, this place is about to blow. I told Oz that's my song. Everybody's on edge. There are so many people there who are over medicated, just about to lose, about to snap. So all they need is a little push. You know what I'm saying? So you don't even need to really go in deep inside the paint to get people to do the things you want to do nowadays. It's, you know, there are so many things that are happening left and right that you just have to go back and you have to step back and you have to look at it. And what happens right out of the gate? You got Kathy Hochul talking about more censorship, you know, pointing the finger. A lot of lawmakers, fam, they started pointing the finger at social media again. So here they're ready to come on in there. You know, like I said, the divide, disarm, distract, demonetize. They want to take away more freedoms on the internet, take away more speech, more press, less the controlled speech and propagandists. They have what's going on. And it's just a big distraction from a lot of things going on, like what we're going to talk about next with the whole Ukraine situation with Pfizer data dumps and all this stuff like that. We're not talking about things we need to talk about. They threw the Roe v. Wade thing in. Now they have that. You know, and right out of the gate, when you look at this manifesto, it's just very divisive right out of the way. It's trying to push that race war, you know, that a lot of people feel that's kind of like, you know, on the surface over there that we're on edge and we could blow. So that's just all the notes I just took down to as well. And I want to say special love to Lucky Burrito, Miguel H., William Wallace, Deep Space, and Keem James hanging on out in the chats today. I've been looking at your information and all the stuff you guys been chatting about. Play nice in the chat, but certainly just the tip of the iceberg over here. We don't want to go much further than with that right there. But these are a lot of things out there. They're just they make you scratch your head and you go, holy shit, this just seems just too perfect for the security state to do whatever they want to fucking do now, fam.
Yeah. And the only thing keeping me from that is the fact that there is that connection to the Azov battalion, and that is a very real thing, like the Black 13 Son. But real quick, because we do have a guest coming on soon, I want to show some of the pictures and some of the stuff that I'm talking about. So there's a picture of him getting arrested, right? At slide 32. And you guys can see that. Okay. So one of the main things that I noticed right away is that the media was completely trying to turn this into Tucker Carlson and Russia. Tucker Carlson and Russia. So, you know, the Buffalo shooter who just killed all these people literally had the same insignia. And we just talked about that, right? And Ukraine Maps pointed that out. Ukraine Maps is an account that is now suspended. And they were suspended, according to his Telegram, because of the Nazi ties they were putting with the shooter. And he talked about that, right? He talked about the fact that this was the same logo, right? That was used. And this is the Black Sun logo. So that's something to point out. And here is a deeper picture, right, of this. So this is the Azov battalion, a sign, and you guys can see the insignia there. And I'll just read a little bit of what it says. It says, it's the Wolf's Angel, a German heraldic charge inspired by historic wolf traps adopted by the Nazi Party, used prominently by Wehrmacht as an SS unit. And that's the Black Sun. That's a variation of the sun wheel. It's an extremely popular and extensively used neo-Nazi / white power extremist symbol, famously used in the armor and weapons of the Christchurch mosque shooter Brenton Tarrant, who killed 51 and injured 40. If you guys remember that, this is the guy he constantly mentions in his piece. Now, that's the only thing that sort of deterred me from thinking, okay, Is this some guy that's like pushed by the FBI? But they're pushing it onto Russia. I'm going to point out how they're pushing it onto Russia. But before I do that, I have to point this out, because this is to me the most idiotic response I've seen on Twitter. And I have to go over some of these idiotic responses coming from the left and coming from socialists, right? Because they want to say this is a conservative problem. This is a blah, blah, blah. In the guy's own manifesto, he's talking about everybody. He's talking about being a part of multiple groups, not a single group, but being influenced by multiple groups. So Jordan says, folks more focused on Buffalo shooter's gun having the black sun symbol the Azov battalion uses, which has been used since Nazis invented it in Germany, than the actual white supremacy terrorism that just happened and is spreading across America needs some fresh air. Again, it's this type of concept that makes it seem like this issue isn't even a foreign policy problem, right? And because even if it is a false flag, it's still a foreign policy problem. Because this is all about control. This is all about the surveillance state. This is about shutting down your ability to have any sort of defense, your ability to have a dissent, your ability to have anything. So if it is real, then it's a foreign policy problem. If it's not, it's still a foreign policy problem. But people on the progressive left, they don't see it as anything outside of the domestic issue. They want to focus on the Trump supporter being a white supremacist. They want to focus on Tucker Carlson being a white supremacist. And he continues, I know it's in a political debate these days. The go-to move for a growing number of people is whataboutism or changing the subject, but a white supremacist who literally hunted black people and wrote a manifesto that sounds eerily similar to your average Tucker Carlson monologue is the story here, not Ukraine or the Azov battalion. The people making the Azov the focus are either doing so intentionally to ignore the increasing white supremacy right here at home or are missing the trees from the forest. So I guess Nazis that this country is funding plays no part in creating this similar type of killer, right? Plays no part. You don't think that the fascists in the State Department are a problem? You don't think that those are actual fascists, the ones creating this sort of behavior all over the world, and then now in this country and weaponizing whatever they're weaponizing to meet a sort of agenda? That's not a problem. But like, let's focus on the Tucker Carlsons of the world. He's exactly the kind of person this sort of thing works for.
Oh yeah. And you should call him by his first name, fam.
Like this is scary. This is the scariest thing. We need to go after Tucker Carlson, the right, all Republicans. No, dude, no. You're looking at this from a one-dimensional perspective when it requires several.
It's because his name is Jordan the White Knight Sheridan, and that's what it is too. It's a very, at best, it's a narcissistic thing to kind of make it about this people. Like, oh my God, this is a problem everywhere. You're talking about the actual white supremacist mentality. I mean, I thought Nazis kind of promoted the Aryan race, the Aryan army. No, fam. I mean, I'm just this shit is just like, wow. And you don't know if he's just motivated because, his significant other is a spook, or he's doing it because he wants to just, he's a narcissistic asshole and he wants to just bring attention to himself and what a white knight he is over here. I don't know. You tell me. So.
Well, he went after Glenn Greenwald, and I don't have it on here, but he was like, I used to talk about being part of the Intercept, but I'm glad I didn't because Glenn Greenwald, blah, blah, blah. I mean, sure, Jordan, now, don't they welcome you all the time? I mean, you're perfect for the Intercept, give up whistleblowers, dox people. I mean, it's just perfect. Here's this person responded. The reason people are connecting the two is because the US is sending billions of dollars worth of weapons that will fall into neo-Nazi hands that use the same black sun symbol. Also, many in the media deny a neo-Nazi presence in the Ukrainian military. So this is why people are saying, wait a minute, this is hypocritical. You guys are going to clutch your pearls about this kid. Like, you literally are funding worst trained military, paramilitary fascists in Ukraine, and you're pretending that they don't exist. But now you want to focus on the white supremacy in this country and in this kid and all this whole thing. It's like, it doesn't add up. It just doesn't make any sense. How are you going to do both? You can't do both. You can't be funding neo-Nazis on one end and then being appalled that one takes a very similar belief that he literally says it's from Europe. Like, it's from, like, they can't deny that this comes from Europe because it does. And then you're going to say, oh, this is a white supremacist domestic extremist problem in the United States. No, you can't do that. You know, there's not, it's ridiculous. And then he points big name figures doing it. Like, come on, just name the names, Jordan. Just name the names. So again, here's a side-by-side picture of the mass shooter Nazi terrorist in America. This is what he's considered: mass shooter Nazi terrorist in America and the hero in Ukraine. I mean, this is literally what we're supposed to believe, right? Yeah. Nobody here is saying that this is a good thing, that this guy is innocent. No, that's not what people are saying. But it's hypocritical at the very least on that aspect of this whole thing, that they're doing this, right? Now, of course, the media takes this and finds no time to wait to blame Russia on this. So Russia, according to Business Insider, could strike back at the West by calling on its network of white supremacist groups to commit terror attacks there, an analyst warns. So now Russia is in charge. And then the next one, as Russia's Ukraine invasion stalls, the Kremlin could call on military groups or militant groups to foment violence in the West, experts warn. They don't talk about which experts warn. Like, who are the experts? They never mention them. I read the whole article. They don't mention them at all. A former U.S. intelligence official warned of a likely bid by Russia to stir political violence. 2 Russian groups currently fighting in Ukraine have ties to the far-right groups in the U.S. and the Western Europe. But they don't talk about the Azov battalion, right? They list paragraphs of the troops in Russia, but they don't talk about the Azov battalion. Here they say experts are increasingly concerned, again, who are the experts, that as Russia's invasion stalls, the Kremlin could choose to retaliate against the West, not just through economic, diplomatic means, but also inciting violent attacks at the heart of the NATO alliance. The tool it could seek to exploit is a network of neo-Nazi and white supremacist groups in Russia, Western Europe, and the US, with which it has cultivated ties for decades. There are literal documents and information talking about how the CIA has trained these radical groups, these Nazi white supremacist groups. They've come here and they've trained.
And they fund them all in the global South too.
And they fund them all in the global South and in West Asia.
Oh yeah,
we've created these radical actual extremists.
Yeah, fucking West Asia. You're right. My bad.
No, yeah, but they're talking about them, Russia, right? And it's just like, wait a minute, but where's your article on the Azov battalion then? So be fair to then do a whole article on Ukraine. And here it says, Chris Chivius, who served as a National Security Council's intelligence officer for Europe from 2018 to 2021, said they've done that before in much of Europe, and I would not be surprised if they are doing it today, trying to get their intelligence services at the right moment to get these groups agitated. This is exactly what the U.S. is doing. This is exactly what the U.S. is doing. Who's funding the Azov battalion? It's not Russia. Who's funding Nazis? It's not Russia. Are there Nazis everywhere? Of course there's Nazis everywhere. But like, there's only Nazis in Ukraine that are in control of the military and in control of the government, that are holding their own president as prisoner because Zelensky can't do anything against the U.S. They'll whack him. He can't do anything against the Nazis. They'll whack him. So the guy's a prisoner himself. Whack him. Yeah, that's apostatism. That's the whack him. Okay, so then they say they could offer the Kremlin a potential route for inflicting violence and chaos in the Western nations, providing key diplomatic and military support to Ukraine while maintaining plausible deniability, experts say. I don't think anything's beyond the pale for Putin. I mean, look at this language. I mean, this is ridiculous. And they put this out right at the same time that this is going on. So what, that whole, okay, well, the Azov battalion, why would they incriminate themselves? Oh, no, because they can take the Azov battalion and turn it around and say, nope, this isn't the Azov battalion. This is Russia's Nazis. This is Russia doing this. And that's exactly what they're doing. So now we have Russia and Tucker Carlson, and they have tied Tucker Carlson to Russia already. So
we just tied Jordan Sheridan tied him to white supremacy, and a lot of people who wave their fingers at imaginary Nazis do that anyway. So sorry, but yeah.
Yeah. And as we finish up this section, I do have to point out, that some of these socialists are the ones putting this out. And, that was Jordan Sheridan, who's like, progressive. And this is Carl Beeger. I forget how to say his name. So he went after Wyatt. Beeger, whatever. complains here. Carl Bichet complains that so many on the left focus on what he calls the narrow problem of arming fascists in Ukraine, before insisting that the U.S. government sending guns to Azov militants is certainly not uniquely dangerous or uniquely hypocritical. And yes, and he talks about this in his article. So he writes, less than 5 minutes after news broke of the teenager in New York had murdered 10 in a mass shooting, Twitter found a way to blame it on Ukraine. And he puts out Ukraine Maps' tweet, and where he said he was inspired by the Azov, aid and rights sector and the Ukrainian armed forces. And then he goes on to talk about Wyatt, and he says, shortly thereafter, the same account added inspiring lone wolf shootings to its list of war crimes by Ukrainians, which is true. Mm-hmm. This narrative was dutifully promoted by Russian state media, doesn't name Wyatt, but links to his tweet. Of course, and it's not hard to understand why, blaming the killing on Ukraine is meant to further justify Russia's invasion as a necessary campaign of denazification. No, Russia's invasion, whether this guy shot people or not, is something that you could say they were provoked. Whether you think it's an invasion, whether you agree, they had reasons why they did it, and they laid out those reasons, and we've talked about them ad nauseum. This has nothing to do with that. This is just showing the hypocrisy of Western media and Western politicians in continuously funding Nazis and then complaining about Nazis killing people and having this whole manifesto and then weaponizing that manifesto to further take away our civil rights and our civil liberties and impose a bigger mass surveillance state that we're seeing becoming more and more authoritarian each day. So if you want to talk about fascists and Nazis, well, I think it's the ones in the State Department and the Pentagon that we have to worry about more.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And so then he leads with, why have so many on the left confined their response to the Buffalo shooting to the narrow problem of arming fascists in Ukraine? Sending guns to Azov militants is dangerous and hypocritical, but it's certainly not uniquely dangerous or uniquely hypocritical. Like, what the hell does that even mean? What the hell does that even mean, Carl? Right. Carl, like, what do you mean?
It's uniquely dangerous.
So you add the word uniquely and now it means something different? Like, this doesn't make any sense, right? It's like, oh my God. And it's like,
it's a parody of himself.
It's a parody. The whole thing is a parody. And then he goes on, I'm concerned about the way socialists are navigating the politics of international fascism because I want to see the fascists lose everywhere. But more broadly, I am concerned about how easily the socialist critique of fascism and imperialism slips into the nationalist partisan framework of bourgeoisie discourse. The points we make about these issues shouldn't sound exactly like what Republican capitalists say or what Democratic capitalists say or what capitalist militaries fighting nationalist wars have to say. We're socialists and we should sound like it. You don't sound like a socialist. You sound like a completely brainwashed, propagandized liberal. And it doesn't matter at this point. I don't care if you call yourself a socialist or anything at this point, because look where we're at. We got this guy who calls himself a socialist advocating that what's happening in Ukraine isn't uniquely hypocritical or dangerous. What? Like, what world do I live in where there are more Republicans like Marjorie Taylor Greene and what's his name? Matt Gaetz. Yeah. Well, the libertarian Rand Paul that, Costa and I would always argue over, but they are more anti-war than Carl because they see a problem with the funding of this whole thing. And, they're not denying a lot of the time. They're not denying this as much as the Democrats and the left is. And so Alex posted a really great comeback saying, I don't know. I feel like a Nazi doing a mass shooting in Buffalo is a good to bring up the fact that the U.S. government is arming and supporting Nazis abroad. I mean, it's just ridiculous because that is exactly what the U.S. government is doing. And just to go off of the really good tweets I saw, Ricky Rance put out this tweet and I immediately was like, yes. He says, so they keep letting murderers murder so they can ramp up the surveillance state. Got it. And that sums it up, guys, because if there was a way to solve this, guess what? The United States is a fascist, military, entity. I mean, we may not get the brunt of it, but people abroad sure as hell get the brunt of it all the time. Mm-hmm. We create and arm radicals all the time. So what makes you think we wouldn't do it at home? And what makes you think that it doesn't have a purpose? Because all I've done here is lay out the many facets of this whole thing, and you can decide for yourself. But at the end of the day, after everything that's happened, this whole situation is going to be weaponized, whether true or not. It will be weaponized against the American people, and it will be weaponized against any sort of anti-establishment, entity that we have. And I just wanted to show, and you guys should go back and read this article. This is a Time article that talked about literally in depth how white supremacist militias use Facebook to radicalize and train new members. And this was put out in 2021. And they talk about the recruiting and training in August of 2019 with the military wing of Ukraine's far-right Azov movement, which has inspired white supremacists from around the world. They literally say the Azov movement has inspired white supremacists from around the world. The guy goes on to talk about how he came in and that they noticed the swastika tattoo on the middle finger of this guy's left hand. And it didn't surprise him. The recruiter had made no secret of his neo-Nazi politics within the global network of far-right extremists. He served as a point of contact to the Azov movement, the Ukrainian militant group that has trained and inspired white supremacists from around the world, in which Fuller had come to join. Fuller is a person that is talking in that article. Now, I want to say this. The government is not interested in ending these extremists. They're interested in creating more of them. That's very clear. When they talk about, when you see these politicians say, we must end white supremacy, we must end this, and then they continue invading Somalia, they continue bombing other countries and creating radicals, guess what? They're not interested in it. They're only interested in saying this and weaponizing it and politicizing it to make you believe that they're interested in it, but that's not part of their plan. It's not part of their plan at all. Otherwise, we wouldn't be funding Nazis in Ukraine. Right. And so this is how they talk about the Azov battalion now, post-war, as of April. This is from the Washington Post. Right-wing Azov battalion emerges as a controversial defender of Ukraine. Militia with far-right views says it welcomes all volunteers, regardless of ideology, in the fight against Russia. Look how positive they point them out, fam. It's just a militia, and they're welcoming to all ideologies.
Just nationalists, fam.
They're just a militia. They're welcoming. They're not, Nazis that have the same insignia as the guy that just shot up. I mean, this is like, it's just comical. And also, of course, as Pasta mentioned, Kamala Harris's next target is banning AR-15 style assault weapons.
Yeah. Divide, disarm, distract, and demonetize. Fam, how about we just jump into our guest right now, since he's been patiently waiting over here? Yes. Because this is a guy who's been demonetized over there. He's been shadow banned, shut down, shut up. He is an Assange activist, but he's still fighting a good fight, and he's joining us here today. This guy has been on my mind. I'm glad you reached out to him, fam. Gordon, and let me make sure I say it right. Dimmock is here.
That's right, mate.
What's up, Gordon?
Yeah, I'm good, Craig. How are you? Hi, Craig. Hi, Phil.
Hi.
Yeah, I thought you were going to be wearing your hat, because I got my hat right here. It's like, look at me and Gordon. We got our hats on. Gordon's got that cool ass hat in that picture. Where's it at? There it is.
Oh.
It's one of them anyway.
Oh my gosh.
I have many hats.
Oh, man.
So, Gordon, welcome in. Obviously, we were talking about everything that's been happening, not just with Russia, Ukraine, but also the recent shooting and all that whole scenario that's been going on. But we're talking about the surveillance state, right? We're talking about this encroaching fascism in the United States that we're having, where we can't say certain things or we'll get taken off of YouTube, we'll get demonetized, and you've experienced that. So before I go into Julian, just tell us a little bit about what you've experienced in terms of social media demonetizing or banning you or restricting your ability to have speech.
Well, when I first started doing this, it was about 5 years ago, and I didn't really know what I was doing. Some will say that I still don't know what I'm doing, but I didn't really know what I was doing at the time. But I knew that the media had broken, and I knew that the algorithms were really constricting people as far as 5 years back, after the 2016 election, around the time of the inauguration of Trump. And that's why I sort of jumped in February of 2017 and started my YouTube channel. Didn't know what I was doing, but just tried to find out what had happened in the world and why everything was so messed up. And for about 18 months, you know, I learnt my trade and things were going well. I was packing on 3,000 subscribers a month on YouTube, and, you know, it was doing okay. And just after Julian Assange had been dragged out of his asylum in what my friend John White calls an act of fascism on home soil and thrown in Belmarsh prison, I sent Julian a letter, as many people did, and he wrote back to me. And soon after that, the United States added 17 other charges or whatever it was. And at that point, I went public. And since that time, I haven't added a single subscriber on YouTube, not a single one. I had 18,000 subscribers at the time, and I think I've got 18,100 now. And that pretty much shut me up on every platform. There's times when I don't think even my signal has gone out. I'm not sure. So that's pretty much what I've experienced. It's been a long slog. It's been 5 years, and I've done everything I possibly can to try and get the truth out there, because every nation is lying to their populations right now, every single one of them. I had an argument, not an argument, I had an incident the other day where there was a lady in Russia who was saying, oh, isn't it terrible, lady in America, how she was saying to somebody on TikTok in Russia, isn't it terrible how your Putin and your media is lying to you all? It's like, have you seen your own media for the last 5 years? Have you seen the UK's media? It doesn't matter. The Australians, it's the same. No matter where you go, they're just lying to us all. And I've tried my best to try and, you know, put the truth out there. And I've tried really hard to fight for Julian, because in his letter to me, he asked me to save his life. This is somebody who I knew enough at that time. I'd researched enough about the case to know that this man was 100% innocent of everything that they were charging him with, and it was all a ruse, and it was all because it was the way America and the United Kingdom as well to punish somebody who had been a thorn in their side. And yeah, that's pretty much. I've done everything I can since. I've covered events. I've covered protests here, and I've covered the case extensively. And while many people in the independent sphere will shy away from Julian Assange and reporting on Julian Assange, because they know that when they talk about him, they get slapped by the algorithm. I've been one of the few, I think, who really lent into it, and really lent into, because when they try and silence you, they're not proving you wrong. You know, when you try and rip a man's tongue out, they're not saying you're a liar. They're scared of what you're saying.
Absolutely.
And that's pretty much why I've lent into it. But it's been 5 years now. So, and like a couple of weeks ago, I was like, oh, this is really getting tough now. I'm thousands of pounds in debt, and I need to start looking after myself. So I've took a bit of time just to, I've done a lot of exercise over the last couple of weeks. The sun's been quite nice. It's been out here over the UK where I live. So it's been like the summer of '69. I've been playing my guitar a little bit and just getting back to enjoying things, knowing that this decision is coming up in the next couple of weeks that he's going to decide his fate.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of things to talk about Julian too as well, but I just want to kind of pause real quick and talk about your situation, because it's very much similar to ours, right? I did see when you got frustrated a couple of weeks ago, and I just felt so much for you right there, because knowing what you go through in getting suspended and demonetized and whatnot. And that's because, like you said, they want to silence the truth from getting out. And there's a group of us, whether we talk about Julian Assange, elections, or the COVID, they're going to shut us up, and they're going to try to demonetize us and punish us because they don't want us doing that. What was your situation like with the TikTok situation? Did something happen? Did they suspend your TikTok or take it down or demonetize you or sack you in some way?
The situation at the moment is the TikTok is still up, but it's like one more infraction and the whole thing gets taken down. And you know yourself, working with YouTube, you can't get an answer from it. It's not like there's anybody at YouTube you can email when you've got a problem. So you shouldn't have taken this video down. It's not like that. And in TikTok, it's even worse because you're speaking to the Chinese. So they don't know what you're talking about half the time. And I'm almost certain that they've shut me up on YouTube. And there's been I'm almost sort of certain they've shut me up on YouTube. And with regards to the TikTok thing, I'm very careful what I say. I tend not to you know, I tend to try and color within the lines as much as I possibly can, especially on, you know, with the way the algorithms are. But I've probably done about 80 videos on TikTok, and about 30 of them have been taken down. It's obviously, it's a mass. I talk a lot about Palestine, a lot about Julian Assange, a lot about things that, you know, power don't want me talking about. And I got up to 122,000 subscribers very quickly on TikTok. And then all of a sudden I start getting, you know, bans for videos taken down because of mass reporting, saying that I'm misinforming people, saying that, you know, I'm breaking rules of integrity because I'm trying to mislead them and that sort of thing. And it's obviously that's not the case. And in most instances, like 28, I think, instances out of the 30 odd, they've said, no, you were wrong. We're wrong. You're right. We'll overturn that. But on many, they don't even look at the appeal. And on many others, well, I think on 3 others, they've upheld two others, just on 2 accounts. On 2 accounts, I have what they say broke the rules. They won't tell you why. And there's nothing that I've seen the videos, and there's nothing you can point to there that's factually untrue.
But Gordon, does this mean that you're being effective in your mind? You got to know that, therefore you're being effective. That's why they're taking this down.
Well, yeah, of course, you know, but with TikTok, they're going to ban me now. There's one more infraction. They take the account down and they take all of the videos that I've done. Then some of them got millions of views. And I don't want them to sort of go amiss. So I've kind of just stopped with TikTok at the moment. I can't get a conversation with anybody there. If I could actually get any sort of support from them, maybe I could get them to change their mind. Maybe I could say, like, these videos, I've appealed them and you haven't even looked at the appeal. And on many occasions, like the thing that pissed me off the most, that sort of made me do that video a couple of weeks ago, was they got a video from 2 years ago, I think, when I first started, or last year when I first started on TikTok. I haven't been on it that long. And it was mass reported. And I immediately appealed it. They banned me for a week, and I immediately appealed it. They overturned the appeal, but kept the ban. And they've done that the last 3 times now. So it's obvious that they don't, you know, they either don't want me on the platform or it's been targeted. But I just know that there's nowhere I can go for any sort of justice on it, for any sort of help. It's pretty obvious that they don't want people spreading truth on TikTok. They want, you know, people dancing digga 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 digga, you know, something that's going to not cause anything politically bad for them. And I think it's been 5 years as well, Craig. I'm a little bit tired. I probably need to just take a little bit of a back step, a little bit, because it's horrible doing this. You know, it can really affect your mental health.
Absolutely.
When you know your government, when you figure out that meme, we're the baddies, you know, and you figure out, we're the baddies, and you figure out, all those stories that I heard about my country growing up and how proud I am of my country, they were probably all lies, weren't they? Because they're trying to shut everybody up telling the truth now, which means they were doing it in the past too. So how much of our history, and history is written by the winners, as we know. So how much of our history do we know is the truth? And this is why Julian Assange and his freedom is so important to me, because I've explained in the past, and you know, I'm sure you have too. The fourth estate is the pillar of democracy that keeps it holding up. Without it, you don't have a democracy. You have the illusion of it. You have an oligarchy. You have a whatever you want to call it. It's not a democracy there, which is, it just makes it laughable now that when we try and justify sending missiles to Nazis to defend democracy in Ukraine. So come on, it wasn't 5 minutes ago you were saying this country was the most corrupt country in the world. Which is it?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's you said it so perfectly right there, because that's exactly what it is. I don't think I think the fourth estate is completely dead. I mean, at least in the United States, it's gone. You know, what you have left is independent media trying to survive suppression and trying to make it through. And there's like this, we need to create like an actual pillar, because it's not there anymore in most of Western Europe. I mean, with the banning of RT, the banning of Sputnik in a lot of, places, and just like complete and total removal of dissenting voices. The reason why Julian Assange is so important is extremely prevalent now. We just had a journalist, an American citizen, an American Palestinian journalist, Shireen Abu Akleh, who was shot by Israeli snipers and
awful. Just awful.
Denied. And I mean, it was videoed and they still denied it. They still said, oh, it was the Palestinians, terrorists, or it was this conflict. And the United States hasn't said or will do anything against their ally that continues to commit these war crimes. And, it's I guess Israelis can just shoot journalists and it's not a problem. Journalists can now die everywhere. They either die physically, they smear them, or they imprison them. So this is why this case to me is extremely important too, especially at the time we're at now. And I thank you for covering it. And I'm going to ask you where are we now? Where are we at now in terms of Julian? It seems like his fate is in the hands of Priti Patel, and that seems ridiculous to me.
Yeah, it is ridiculous. It is ridiculous. Priti Patel is expected to sign Julian's death warrant and extradite a journalist to the country that not long ago planned to kidnap and kill him.
Right.
It's plainly ridiculous, as you say. You brought up Shireen Abu Akleh then, and the actions of the Israeli occupation force. I don't like to call them the IDF. There was a politician. It's nice I can tie this in, because there was a politician in the UK, I think it was today, who his name is Andy McDonald. I think he's Labour MP for somewhere up in the northeast anyway. And he asked the question of the UK government obviously in the wake of the murder of that Palestinian American journalist. And he said, he actually tweeted it out. He said, the murder of Shireen Abu Akleh and the actions of the Israeli occupying forces at her funeral are symptomatic of the crime of apartheid that's been inflicted on Palestinians. It's time the UK government recognised what has been rigorously documented by Human Rights Watch, Amnesty and B'Tselem. Now, he asked that question in Parliament, I think it was today, and the answer the minister gave back, I think it was Vicky Ford, yeah, it was she couldn't, and the government of the UK couldn't call it an apartheid, because that's a legal term, okay? And you can only use that term if it comes under international law. So the UK government, the Tories, are saying, listen, if it's international law, then we'll do it. There's nothing we can do about international law. Well, I'd like to draw their attention then to the United States-UK extradition treaty. I don't know whether you've seen this, Fiorella, but it's the UK-US extradition treaty, and it says at the top, between the government of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland and the government of the United States of America, with exchange of notes, Washington, 31st of March, 2003, presented to Parliament by the Secretary of State for Foreign and Commonwealth Affairs by command of Her Majesty, June 2007. That is international law. That's the very definition of it. This is a document in international law. And on page 4, Article 4 of the US-UK extradition treaty, it says this: extradition shall not be granted if the offence for which extradition is requested is a political offence. Now, I'd like to have a conversation with anybody who believes that Julian Assange isn't in prison for a political offence. I'd like to have a conversation with anybody who actually thinks Julian Assange is in prison because he didn't do anything other than piss off people in America and, in high positions of power in America. Because that's all it was, really, wasn't it? That's a political offence. The UK, by their own admission in Parliament today, for a different reason, of course, they're saying, if it's international law, then we'll follow it. Shot themselves in the foot. According to them, they have to deny extradition. Whether they will or not, well, that remains to be seen, because this government, all bets are off. They're just, I wouldn't make a deal with them. I tell you that much.
Yeah.
What is this?
But anyway, Preeti Patel, to talk about, I'm sorry, your question was Preeti Patel, she's going to sign his death warrant, but it's not, it really just starts the next stage of the process, doesn't it? And this is not the aim is not to free Julian. The aim is to keep him shut up exactly where he is and torture him to death. Yeah. That's the aim. And if we can extradite him, great. That's the aim. You know, Assange's lawyers will appeal if she signs the extradition, and then it will go back to the process again. Do you remember the beginning of last year when the judge said, no extradition, we're not going to extradite him. The US courts, the US jail system's just too bad, he'll die. Mm-hmm. That was beginning of last year, they said that. It's got to this point just to get from there to here. Mm-hmm. We've had this theatre going on, this judicial theatre where the judge is a 40-year-old good friend of Sir Alan Duncan, the man who was the architect behind him getting grabbed from the Ecuadorian embassy in that, as I say, act of fascism on home soil. He's a 40-year-old friend of him. He used to call him prime minister, and Duncan used to call him the judge. You know, they're like a box of rats, these people are. We've got to stop electing these privately educated toffs to positions of power in this country. That's just another point. But how long, when Julian's team appeal it, if it's signed, going against international law by their own admission, how long is that process going to, is it going to be another 3 years? It's been 3 years since he's been in Belmarsh. It's been 4 years since he's been silenced. They ripped his tongue out of him before that when they stopped his communications at the embassy. He's been arbitrarily detained now for 10 years. They could keep it going for another 10, and I'm sure that is the plan for many people. We've got to stand up for it. But journalists in this country are just
yeah.
They're on the. There was a speech made by Ice Cube, was it, or Ice T the other day? I always get them mixed up. And he was talking about the gravy train and the Democrats on the gravy train, and probably people were on TikTok saying, "What, they're getting paid?" No, it's not that. It's that if you mention these things about Assange, you don't get paid. You don't get a job at The Guardian if you're on the side of Assange now. You just don't. They have been cast to the sides long ago. If you're on the side of Edward Snowden and against this security state, you are on the fringes. And then now, well, what are they doing now? Now they're denying them access to money. They're denying them access to banking systems, to PayPal, just the same way they went after Assange in the first place. I keep saying to people, they're not coming after Assange. They're coming after you. He's just in the way.
Yeah. Yeah, that was my next question, though. What does this mean in the macro sense, Gordon, when it comes to independent journalists who want to speak the truth? You know what I'm saying? What does this mean for them? Because that statement you said, they're not coming after Assange. They're coming after you. He's just in the way. So what does this mean for journalists? Because we're seeing them getting slaughtered all over the place. We are, the whole Shireen situation is disgusting. This happens all the time. What does this mean moving forward?
It doesn't look good, mate. It just doesn't. I'm a pretty resilient person, and it's just not. It's beat the shit out of me. It really has. Yeah. And I've just it's a fraction of what Julian's, and that's why we do it. That's why I've been able to carry on for so long. And maybe, after a short rest, I'll be able to come back and we'll see what happens in the next few weeks. But it's not good. It really isn't. They're shutting up anybody who tells the truth. And now they've got their own, did I see a disinformation thing? I mean, we are in 1984 now. And the only reason I've got this far, guys, there's nobody else in the UK that does what I do, I don't think. I've certainly haven't been, I haven't found them. There's nobody really independent in Julian, in journalistic circles, really, covering it. There's people who work at outlets and work for outlets and whatever, but nobody really, who gets money from people solely. I've got less than 50 patrons. I've been doing it 5 years. I'm not that shit in my job. And the only reason I've been able to go for this long is I haven't got kids. I haven't got a mortgage. I've got a wonderful partner who supports me, and I've got a great family, and I've got that support as well. But if I had those responsibilities, I wouldn't have been able to get this far. So for anybody else, and now the censorship's even worse. Remember, I kind of built up a little bit of a following in the first 18 months on YouTube before they cut the legs off me. Yeah. So I kind of got just to the point where I actually was getting to the stage where, oh, great, I'm going to get my head above water here. And obviously then everything was cut from under me. And they're going to keep doing this to anybody who tells the truth. And this is not China and Russia or North Korea doing it. This is a good old Great Britain. It's great about that, eh?
The good old great United States too. I mean, you know, the United States is the one giving a lot of the orders, and where the West and NATO countries take their cues from. And that's where we're at, Gordon. I mean, it's honestly, I fear for Julian if he comes here, because that is a death sentence.
He's dead.
It's a death sentence. Yeah.
The minute he's on, he's dead. It's as simple as that. It's not 175 years in prison. It's dead. If they don't torture him to death, he'll kill himself. I would. There was no way I would do. It's just, I couldn't. Yeah. Come on.
Yeah.
There's not a jail cell in the United States that he couldn't be got at. And if you want proof of that, then I mean,
yeah,
I need to mention his name.
Is there there's a timeline though, right? In the next few weeks is when Priti Patel is supposed to come up with a decision.
Yeah, I think it's between today and the end of the month. Between the 60, I think it's a 2-week period she's got, so it could be any time in the next few days. I'm not 100% sure of that, but I think it's the next 2 weeks. So we'll see, and we'll see and when that decision is made, by the way, it'll be interesting to what the media will prop up as a story.
Right.
Because whenever something happens with Assange, there's some story that they will escalate and comes out of nowhere and just knocks it flying. It's in and out of the news, TV faster. I mean, the one day there was a guy called Gavin Williamson who he was sacked. All of a sudden he was sacked because he said something about Huawei, apparently, and the 5G towers and what have you. And yeah, all of a sudden that was top story. I was booked that day. Yeah, this is before Assange. This is before Assange sent me a letter, before Julian sent me a letter. I was booked that day. I think it was just after he was dragged out the embassy. And I was booked to go on talk radio in the UK to talk to a lady called Julia Hartley Brewer. And then all of a sudden, I was talking with the producers, and all of a sudden, Gavin Williamson's story, we're not going to run that anymore, Gordon, sorry. This is how it's done. You know, Gavin Williamson at that stage was like, I've done nothing wrong. And since then, they gave him a knighthood.
Did you ever read Julian Assange's letter to your audience, or have you kept it just to yourself?
I read it out to the audience. I gave it, my friend John McAvoy at the Canary got it published in the Canary. Nobody else touched it in the UK. And I read it out outside the Westminster Magistrates Court when he first sent it me. So I tried to get it out there. I thought, honestly, when I had the letter, I thought, oh, wow, this is going to be huge.
Yeah.
I better get my ducks in a row, you know.
A long letter? Or?
It's just two sides.
Are you interested in reading it right now?
Want me to read
I mean, are you interested in reading it right now? I'd like to hear it. I mean, if you have it, I think with everything coming down to just the wire right now, might be something cool for our audience to hear. And I think it's amazing that Julian wrote you back.
Yeah. And just where we're at right now, it's just, God, everything reminds me of Julian, everything that's happening now. And we talk about this all the time. One of the things the detractors use to say, oh, he's just some, white guy, and you guys are all obsessed because he's just this. It's like he's a symbol for you, for me, for anybody that does journalism, but anybody in general, because you don't have to be a journalist to be treated like this. You could be an activist, you could be a regular person that says the wrong thing, and they come after you, and that's what we're seeing. And he's hardly the only person, but he's definitely the person that brought up a lot of war crimes that the US and the West have committed in the name of democracy, and really inspired a whole generation of people to do this work. So
yeah, I think people who diminish the importance of, especially journalists, if they diminish the importance of him or try and make out that their supporters are crazy. I mean, first of all, yeah, the supporters are a bit crazy. We are dedicated. I've met quite a few of them, and we're all a bit unhinged, to be honest, and you would be too if you found out what the government was doing in your name. But I think any journalists that really aren't talking about this really need to look at themselves in the mirror. Listen to the words.
Here we go.
Thanks, Gordon. You're a good man. I wrote to him. I don't remember what I wrote to him. I've got to be honest. I have been isolated from all ability to prepare to defend myself. No laptop, no internet ever, no computer, no library so far. But even if I get access, it will just be for half an hour with everyone else once a week. Just 2 visits a month, and it takes weeks to get someone on the call list, and a catch-22 in getting their details to be security screened. Then all calls, except lawyers, are recorded, and calls are max 10 minutes and in a limited 30-minute window in which all prisoners compete for the phones. And credit, just a few pounds a week, and no one can call in. On the other side, a superpower that has been preparing for 9 years, with hundreds of people and untold millions spent on the case. I am defenseless, and am counting on you and others of good character to save my life. I am unbroken, albeit literally surrounded by murderers, but the days where I could read and speak and organize to defend myself, my ideals, and my people are over until I am free. Everyone else must take my place. The US government, or rather those regrettable elements in it that hate truth, liberty, and justice, want to cheat their way into my extradition and death, rather than letting the public hear the truth, for which I have won the highest awards in journalism and have been nominated 7 times for the Nobel Peace Prize. Truth, ultimately, is all we have. JPA. I think he's been nominated twice since that letter, twice more, so I think it's 9 times now.
Wow.
It's powerful.
Yeah.
I can't believe that we're doing this to him. This, in years to come, this man will be thought of as the Nelson Mandela of the 21st century. They're going to build statues of him. You cannot find a single person right now, guys, who will say that the imprisonment of Nelson Mandela wasn't a tragedy, wasn't disgusting, should have happened. You can't find a single person. Will it be like that in 10 years, 20 years? Well, I suggest to you, if he's not free, and it's not like that in 20 years, then we won't be here either. Because as he says, if wars can begin with lies, then the truth can start peace.
Yep.
I believe that.
I believe that. And what he said is important. While he's in there, he can't organize, he can't do anything, and we have to take his place. It's as simple as that. And the act of doing this is itself a work towards that. It's itself a work towards speaking out and having dissent. So Gordon, I want to thank you for coming on and having this discussion and reading the letter, and anything else that you want to say to what can be done or what people should be doing to raise awareness. I know there's a lot of activists that we know that are our friends, but just anything on your end that you recommend.
If you go to my Twitter page, I retweeted, I think today, there's a protest in London tomorrow. which will be the 17th on Tuesday. I'm not sure where it is, but if you go on it's in London, I know, to protest Priti Patel and try and get her to do the right thing and follow their own international laws. Their own international law stipulates that extradition should not be granted for a political offence. And there's no doubt that, this is a political offence. So if you are in the UK, please email your politician. If you go to the Defend WikiLeaks site, there is a form you can fill in there. There's still a certain amount of time. You can write to the Home Office. You can email the Home Office. And if you're in the US, obviously try and, speak to, and obviously talk to everybody you can as well about the plight of Julian. Because one thing I will tell you, it's a bipartisan thing. Support for Julian it comes from right across the political spectrum. It doesn't matter whether you're supposedly left, supposedly right, and I don't like to look at things through that prism anyway. I think that prism's been bastardized by people to try and get us all divided with it, I mean, they're saying Joe Biden left. Come on. He's where Margaret Thatcher was, actually, if you look at him policy for policy. And actually, you could argue that he's probably more authoritarian, further right than that. And there's no way that she was the left, So when you talk about left and right, I don't like talking about it because you immediately talk about things in terms that they want you to talk about them because then they can keep you divided. But it transcends the political spectrum, his plight, because people know how important it is, whether they're liberals, whether they're communists, or whether they are capitalists or conservatives. Some great people who are conservatives, and they support him, and I wish more people would. And the strange thing is, when they do know the truth, I've spent time on many a protest, many a time at Piccadilly, talking to people, handing out flyers. And when they know the truth, they want to get involved. They can't believe that our country's doing this. Yeah. And that's why they've had to silence people who are telling it in this country, because it might start a revolution.
Yeah. Gordon, whatever decision you decide on making, I can say that we've waited way too long to bring you on, and whatever decision you do decide to make, we'll respect it and support it. But I did write a letter down here, a note on my notes, because I just want you to know that I hope you keep doing what you do, Gordon. It's really important, and it was really touching today. And I can't thank you enough for doing this work, buddy.
Thank you both, and thank you for what you do. You've been amazing, and people like you keep me sane. Thank you.
Likewise, buddy.
Thanks, Gordon.
Bye, Gordon.
Awesome.
Wow, that letter. Holy shit, fam.
And that's the thing. That letter should have been all over the media, and the fact that it wasn't.
Wow.
Just shows you where we're at. And everything we've talked about today relates to everything, right?
Yeah.
Let's go ahead. Fam, did you want to read any Super Rays?
Yeah, I'm going to read some Super Rays. And, the whole thing of what they're trying to do, right? I mean, when we started this thing too, fam, right? We didn't know what would become of it and stuff. My mom always used to tell me, Craig, prepare for a rainy day, but you can't prepare for fascism. Mom, how could I prepare for fascism? And they're trying to sack us. And
you're never going to be completely prepared because there's only so much you can do.
Exactly. And when the state controls the finances and controls the resources, they can cut you out of it. And like he said, everything they're doing now to people with the PayPal situation, they were doing this to Julian years ago. And the thing that was most, I'm going to take away from that interview right there is what he said. That just, wow, it just hit me right like a sack of rocks. They're not coming for Julian. They're coming for all of us. Julian is just in the way.
Yeah.
Amen, Gordon. We love you. Keep doing this shit. You fucking rock. Tim L, thank you for the Super 8 contribution. Convo Couch, once again, on the trail of truth. It's reached a point where I'm skeptical of anything I see in the mainstream media until independently verified. Thanks, fam. And thank you, Tim L. That was when we were talking, opening up the show about the Buffalo shooter. And then we got Ronnie Graham. Thank you for the Super 8 contribution. Some young people are very easily influenced, fam. Before age of 25, your prefrontal cortex is still developing. Fam talks about that frontal cortex. She said it was something else. Your brain hasn't completely developed. It does not matter what your race is. The guy was flagged up a year ago and still had access to assault weapons. Let that sink in, ladies and gentlemen. Let that sink in. A year ago, they knew this motherfucker had it.
Yeah.
A year ago.
Part of it, right? Like, why would they take away assault weapons to somebody if they can use them to their own?
Yeah. Ronnie Graham also said Jordan is increasingly concerned that he does not get more money. Yeah, and he belittles his audience and makes him feel stupid to give him more money. It's not working, pal. Take a walk. DC, thank you for the Super 8 contribution. We have to put our bodies on the line for Julian Assange and for the defense of press freedom worldwide. We need a sort of transatlantic underground railroad to smuggle him to freedom, or liberty will die most violent and a painful death. I don't want to live in a world where journalists can be effectively lynched by a nation that calls itself freest, in air quotes, a country in the world. Death to INGSOC. Thank you, DC. And DC also said they are giving Julian Assange the Khashoggi treatment, but simply prolonging the suffering. They could literally butcher him in the same fashion and never be legally obligated to provide evidence to the public that he was not. Poor fella got the virus. God rest his soul. Welcome to dystopia now. The war is peace report. Sit down, shut up, and take your meds and fall in line or turn and face the wall. And Sobe, free Assange. Free Assange.
Yeah. No, I mean, if they imprison him, that's it. I mean, that's it for the rest of us. I mean, they can't, once that law takes precedent, it's done for. Yeah. You're not going to have, independent media most people will stop doing what they're doing. Or, I mean, it could go the other way around where people are like, they fight back more. But I just, in the United States, they don't even, I mean, look what they protest for. So.
Yeah. So let's get rolling with the next section over here. Fam, all the Democrats and most of the Republicans work for the military industrial complex. You know what? I should say all Republicans work for the military industrial complex. I was thinking that Rand Paul would be the one that's not funded at all by the MIC, but then again, who knows? But it surely doesn't seem so. And this is an article written by Glenn Greenwald, who pondered out, fam, 2 articles. He pondered out an article about how both sides just politicize, a mass shooting. They both just go in, they start using it to their advantage. The Republicans start screaming, oh my God, a good guy with a gun would have been the only thing that stopped the bad guy with a gun kind of mentality, right? That we need more weapons, not less weapons. Remember when they wanted to arm teachers and all that shit? And then the left, oh my God, we got to take away weapons. This is white supremacy here. We need to call a meeting, and we need to call have a what do you call those things when a task force to get together and figure out what's going on. What's the problems with our society? Why is society doing this, hating people and stuff? And then you had a lot of people falling in line, even independent media journalists, once again, just playing the racial divide, making it about this and that, whatnot, not looking into everything deep down inside. And I even said this morning, I said, well, what is my responsibilities as a white guy, as a white man, if this was just a racial hate attack? Let me know exactly what I'm supposed to do so I can do it, because I'm a little confused. But, I can't understand how we can't see, when we're funding the Azov battalion and this guy has the same freaking black sun on his fucking shirt, that there's not a connection, that this has no responsibility for our government acting the way they do worldwide. You know what I'm saying? Garland Nixon talked about this when he was on a show. They go out there and they kill everywhere. They're out there just doing whatever they want. No rules, no regulations, going crazy. A lot of people come back depressed and mentally ill, and they can never get back on track with the things they had to do overseas. And then they wonder why our society is so crazy, fam.
Yeah. I mean, it's connected. If you're looking at this from a domestic policy issue only, you're not really looking to solve the problem. It is a foreign policy issue because we are an empire. And by that point, because we are an empire, everything we do isn't just based onto your progressive domestic policy. It's an empire exists outside of its borders.
Yeah.
And that's why. And a lot of the left does not think like that. They just completely ignore foreign policy. Completely.
Yeah. And it really is a shame too, as well. There's a couple people out there talking about how members of the squad, certain members want to talk about foreign policy, want to talk out against war. They all signed for this bill. They all signed for the $40 million bill. This is the Glenn Greenwald article right over here. The bizarre unanimous Dem support for the $40 billion war package to Raytheon and the CIA for Ukraine. And fam, you can see that was the infamous when Franco and Max Blumenthal showed up. You can tell there's a lot of AOC supporters, a bunch of people with their mask on outside. But they're there. I'm sorry, I had to take a smack at it, but they're there. You know what I'm saying? And it's ridiculous because a lot of people back then, there were certain people in independent media who Franco went to war with about the whole situation, who were trying to talk to them. You saw Medea Benjamin there, like, smiling. And it's like, come on, what are you doing over here? There were so many different signs. There were so many different chances on when she could have spoke out about the foreign policy apparatus, about the civil liberties being, suppressed. She's there to goat people in, just like Bernie Sanders, into the Democratic Party to become the liberals of tomorrow. And it's just all about creating team sports. Not one friggin' Democrat voted against this bill, fam. Not one. After Joe Biden announced his extraordinary request for $33 billion more for the war in the Ukraine, on top of the $14 billion the U.S. has already spent just 10 weeks into this war, congressional leaders on both parties immediately decided the amount was insufficient. They arbitrarily increased the amount by $7 billion. Fam, what's $7 billion? It's right under the cushions right there, to a total of $40 billion. Then fast-track the bill for immediate approval. And that's why you see so many distractions with everything else going on around us, ladies and gentlemen. As we reported on Tuesday night, the House overwhelmingly voted to approve the bill from a vote of 388 to 57. All 57 no votes came from Republican House members. Remember, fam, when I got made fun of for saying that Marjorie Taylor Greene was left to Bernie Sanders on Ukraine-Russia situation? There you go. In your face. Except for two missing members, all House Democrats, every last one, including all 6 members of the Revolutionary Subversive Squad, voted for this gigantic war package, one of the largest the U.S. has spent at once in decades. Fam, $40 billion. How much would it cost to end world hunger? How much would it cost to end homelessness? Like all this shit right here. And here's the thing, too. It's a blank check. There's no checks and balance. There's no oversight whatsoever. How did the Democrats in the squad, here you go, big check to the military-industrial complex. And we got to depend upon 2 freaking Republicans out of the 57 to go up and make some fucking noise about this? 3, excuse me. Rand Paul do what Rand Paul does. But, I mean, seriously, this is what we have to depend upon? And I mean...
Sanders.
Exactly. Where's Elizabeth Warren? Where's Ro Khanna? Where's the squad? Where's Cori Bush? Where's Ilhan Omar? Come on. And I'm not endorsing Matt Gaetz, but I am endorsing what he said. While a small portion of these funds will go to humanitarian aid for Ukraine, yeah, we'll see how that works out. The vast majority will go into the coffers of the weapons manufacturers, such as Raytheon, fam, Lockheed Martin, Boeing, and the usual suspects. Some of it will go to the CIA for unspecified reasons. Yeah, here you go, CIA. Here's a check. The extreme speed with which this was all approved means that there is little to no oversight of how the funds will be spent, who will profit and how much, and what the effects will be for Ukraine and the world. And the last part of it, to put this $54 billion amount into perspective, it is larger than the average amount of the U.S. spent on its war in Afghanistan, $46 billion, close to the overall amount Russia spends on its entire military for the year, $69 billion, close to 7% of the overall U.S. military budget, by far the largest in the world, $778 billion, and certain to be far, far higher, easily into the hundreds of billions and of dollars, and of likely to the trillions of dollars by the time it's all said and done, given that the U.S. officials insist that this war will not last months, but years, and that it will stand with Ukraine until the bitter end. Remember, Nancy Pelosi says, we're going to stay until it's finished. We're going to stay until the job's done. Lindsey Graham, we got to pour it on with Ukraine, fam. Pour it on. Well, last week we showed the squad. Oh, first of all, let me get your opinions on that real quick as far as what Glenn Greenwald has wrote there with all this money that's going to be spent with no oversight, fam.
I mean, yeah, I mean, we've talked about this ad nauseum. I mean, it's just an unfathomable amount of money. And meanwhile, the United States is collapsing before our very eyes. The economy isn't doing well. The stock market is crashing. And, stock market crashes are cyclical. If you talk to any economist or anybody that deals with money, they're like, oh, it's cyclical. But the problem is it's cyclical, but we haven't had these other situations happen, like the pandemic, like the post-pandemic and what that did. And then, of course, we have this Ukraine and Russia situation that is further exacerbating an already dire situation at home. And so it's not the same thing. Yeah. And I think a lot of economists that are trying to say, well, this is just a regular cycle, everything will get back up. Sure, eventually, maybe. But what you're seeing is an actual collapse of the entire thing. Yeah. And I think a lot of people are in denial about that because they think that everything can just be predicted by their charts and their markets. But the problem is when the system is failing as a whole, you're not going to have just that. We're going to make 2008 look like nothing. Yeah. I think.
And they're trying to push it through really quick, fam, too, as well. Everything you say, it's all about the corruption. Everything you said, because everything's falling down around it. They're trying to push this shit through so quickly. Yeah. This isn't about like somebody not living up to their fiduciary responsibilities or doing what is right or what's wrong because it's an accident. This is purposely doing what's wrong. This is fraud. This is criminal. This is what this is. They are defrauding the United States people. This is criminal actions over here. President Zelensky, okay. Now we talked about Nancy Pelosi going there. We'll fight to the bitter end. Well, here comes the other side, fam. President Zelensky welcomed the U.S. delegation to Kiev, led by Senator Mitch McConnell today. Zelensky said it's a strong signal of bipartisan support for the Ukraine. Fam, how many times have we said that when it's bipartisan support in our Congress, chances are it's war? Yeah. Chances are it's fucking war. Thank you for your leadership and helping us fight not only for our country, but also for the democratic values and freedoms.
They say as they jail journalists and let their allies literally commit genocide and murder journalists, and as they're funding the Azov battalion. Yeah. Okay. Democracy. By the way, remember when Mitch McConnell was Moscow Mitch?
No, now he's not so Moscow Mitch. Right?
Now he's Ukrainian Mitch. Now he's like Zelensky Mitch.
Zelensky like, no Moscow. Mitch. Fam, I don't know if you know this.
Fam.
I'm a newspaper guy. Gordon came on. He had the same hat. Don't make fun. McConnell, Ukraine, to get aid. Senate GOP leader tells Zelensky to expect that $40 billion in support there, fam. It is right there. AP, there you go. They're on cadence. They are on stride. They are synchronized. The propaganda arm and the real journalist like Julian Assange is sitting in a friggin' jail for exposing these assholes' crimes. That's why they feel so confident, because there's not enough Julians out there doing and exposing this shit, fam. And here's a little camera angle you can see of these schmucks walking around. Look at this. I mean, this the only thing he's assuring Zelensky that he's just assuring Zelensky he's going to get his Coke money. That's what he's doing.
Oh God.
Look normal. The most dangerous place on the face of the earth, right, fam? The most dangerous place. Sirens, alarms, but everybody's going there. Angelina Jolie, Bono, friggin' Mitch McConnell, Nancy Pelosi. The most dangerous place. They're so full of shit.
Hello. Nice to meet you. Welcome.
One giant theater.
That's all it is.
Nice to meet you. Thank you so much.
See how the Ukrainian people.
To see you.
How are you?
Good. I'm very happy
You're
to see
very
you, sir.
welcome.
Really, really
Thank you.
cold.
We know each other.
They don't
A
have
little
gas.
bit, yeah.
Let's see how the Europeans are doing
Good
in
to
a
see you again.
few months. And even now, when they can't pay their gas bill.
Yeah, please.
And we invite our delegation also to join.
The EU might not.
Holland.
The EU might see, the people in the EU are a little bit more bright than the Americans.
Susan Collins. Why wasn't Lindsey Graham on this trip over here? He likes to usually go in there and support the Azov battalion and whatnot. I don't know why he didn't come. Maybe he needed to get hair extensions this week, so he couldn't go. Please. These guys are so full of shit, fam. I mean, if the Russians were any threat to actually taking Ukraine, nobody would be in Kiev right now, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Not a fucking single person. That's how you know they're full of shit.
Yeah.
That's how you know they're full of shit. A neighboring country, oh, the Russians are trying to invade to take back Ukraine. Bullshit. You wouldn't be 10 freaking feet near fucking Ukraine, Kiev. Please. It's just built on a lie, and they're trying to push this shit through so quickly. This is criminal. Fam, we have no super raise, but Fred Edward did mention that pasta is 61% Southern Italian and 39% newspaper guy. I like it, Fred Edward. I like it. I like it. I like it.
The mass shooter said he was Italian, but then he specified Northern Italy, not Southern Italy, because Southern Italy aren't considered white.
Oh yeah, I mean, we're more Sicilian. You know, we have.
Yeah, but you're definitely, you got some Northern in you, clearly.
We have some Libyan blood. You know, a little. You know, there's Libyan blood there. I mean, the Moors were, you know, African.
Talk to me
they
about
conquered Sicily for many years and stuff. But, you know, that's all I'm saying, fam. This is something we've been paying close attention to, and we're going to continue to pay close attention to and monitor this. This is something that's so intriguing. Imran Khan claims his life is in danger, right? This is from the Dawn newspaper over here. Imran reiterates the Dawn. Imran, and I love the way Oz has it. Look how beautiful that is. Oz, you are a masterpiece, man, of a work, man. You just do shit. You do work, baby. Imran reiterates a threat to his life, says has recorded video naming all the conspirators. Let's get into this. PTI chairman, in which he was the first president of that party of Pakistan ever, and former Prime Minister Imran Khan said on Saturday his life was in danger and that he recorded a video in which he has taken the names of all those conspired against me last summer. Imran, who claims he was ousted from the top office by foreign powers through local players due to his pursuance of an independent foreign policy, made these remarks in his party's political power show in Sialkot. There is a conspiracy hatched against me in closed rooms and in and outside the country, fam, and they want that Imran Khan's life. He said they want to kill him pretty much. Mm-hmm. I knew of this conspiracy, so I have recorded a video and kept it in a secure place. Dead man switch, fam. If something happens to me, then this video will be made public in front of the nation. In it, whoever has conspired against me, whoever is complicit since last summer, I have named. And that's everyone. They think Imran Khan can be an obstacle in our path and needs to be removed. And that's why I've recorded this video, because I think this is jihad and not politics. If something happens to me, then I want all my Pakistanians to know who was complicit in this conspiracy. I've named everyone who've planned, and I've revealed how, through foreign conspiracy, this is not a corrupt lot, together with them, the others who were them, ended my government. I recorded the video because it's part of the history of how powerful and how the powerful are never brought under the law and always remain safe. Those who betrayed this country, I want their faces to come in the open, the PTI chairman said. So yeah, that's what's going on, fam, with that right now. He's pretty much reporting what's going on. He's been having massive rallies, fam, massive and massive rallies. And like I said, the police, local police forces haven't really got involved too much, whatnot. They're starting to get involved. This is at a certain breaking point. It can go either way, right? They can either buy pressure, and this is the administration that's there right now. That's the puppet government of the foreign United States and the Brits, whatnot, because we've always had the Pakistani country is pretty much under our finger when it comes to their leaders. It can go either way right now, I think. I don't know. You know, this is just a guess. It can really start to blow, or, you know, it can just go away and it's business as usual in Pakistan. But we haven't seen stuff like this. Unprecedented rally after rally after rally, fam. Thousands of people showing up for Imran Khan. So any thoughts before we look at the video and just take a look at the people there, just so we can see the size of some of these rallies?
No, yeah. I mean, it's crazy that he has a that man switch. I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's great. So just take a look. This was the rally the other day. It says special thanks to Usman and Omar Dar and his colleagues for the wonderful arrangements and perseverance of Sailkat, a government of thugs who are afraid of large numbers of people attending our gatherings. Take a look. Now, fam, there's been a lot of indications too as well that our government's behind the scenes pushing strings. A lot of this stuff came to fruition as far as his removal when he decided to go over and visit Putin. He was the first when the war started to go over and visit Putin. And then when he was told to, hey, get in line, you denounce Putin, he told everybody to go scratch, that he's not, the Pakistanis are not the slaves of the West, and they'll be friends whoever they want to be friends with. Well, shortly after, he was removed. Here's some video of Fox News, of course, once again, with the warmongering. And this is from when he kind of, the army chief exposed himself. It says Pakistan's army chief, Bajwa, said that instead of being neutral, Ukraine should be supported against Russia as the U.S. wanted, in which was against Pakistan's independent foreign policy. So he had this independent foreign policy. They were like, no, go with the U.S. And he's like, oh, bullshit. He says now the traitor Bajwa has been completely exposed. Take a look at this video of a spokesperson over here, Dr. Rebecca Grant from the National Security and Military Analysis.
Is Pakistan's got to make some choices, and the head of Pakistan's army came out and said, go Ukraine. Now, Pakistan's a democracy, but the army keeps really tight control of politics. So let's see, this is not a good time for Pakistan to try to be neutral. Trey, you know, the big problem there is also China's inroads into Pakistan.
It's not a good time, fam, for them to be neutral. And here's the reason why, because if they're neutral, then they're going to start being buddy-buddy with China. Can't have that now. Nope.
But it's going to happen regardless. I mean, that's why they're trying to oust him. But I think the people of Pakistan are fighting back. You know, I don't think it's going to be as easy as they think it will.
Yeah. Well, the last video I have for today, once again, and this is something that Imran Khan, I grabbed these from his Twitter, by the way. If there's any doubt about the U.S. plot to change the government, it should not be left after this video of why an elected Democratic prime minister and his government was removed to see a submissive puppet prime minister who does not allow Pakistan to remain neutral in the European war.
What would you say to Pakistan? They've got nuclear weapons, got a big army, and we're not real happy with them. What is our message to Pakistan?
Right. Pakistan needs to support Ukraine, stop looking for deals with Russia right now, limit their involvement with China, okay, and then also stop the anti-American policies that are part of the reason that Imran Khan, their prime minister, got voted out of office a couple of weeks ago. So it's time to cool it on the anti-American, pro-Russia policies in Pakistan. This is not the time.
What they need to do, fam, is straighten up and fly right. Otherwise, the United States going to spank Imran Khan, and they did.
I mean, do you see the level of just like, I mean, what makes you think you have any say into what Pakistan does? I mean, I don't understand why a sovereign country, I thought we respected sovereign countries. Aren't you fighting for the sovereignty of Ukraine right now? Is that not what you're fighting for? I thought, you didn't. Both sides of their mouth. This is why you can't trust anything that the military industrial complex does or says, especially people like Antony Blinken, because they lie and they gaslight in the worst form of lying, right? They project. They say that Russia is doing what they're doing. They say that Pakistan shouldn't do this, while Pakistan is its own country. Why the hell does Pakistan have to listen to what the United States wants them to do? What gives us any right to impose our authority on another country, especially a country that we're so far away from and that we really haven't done much for, and that the people should choose of that country should choose what the hell they want to do. I mean, it's really insane that she's allowed to say that out loud and nobody even, nobody thinks twice of it. They're like, oh yes, they should.
Yeah.
What, who cares about your opinion on what Pakistan should? Pakistanis sure as hell don't care, clearly.
Yeah. It just blows my mind. What Pakistan needs to do is support Ukraine, stop trying to make deals with Russia. Like, she's talking to them like they're like a 6-year-old child that's getting out of line.
Yeah.
And all she's doing is talking out loud. That's what the State Department wants. That's what the CIA wants. That's what the military industrial complex wants. They don't want a neutral freaking Pakistan. Imran Khan was one of the biggest threats, I think, in Pakistan's history for a long time. The first of his kind from a party that had never held office. It's a party that was about 10 years old, I believe. I don't want to make a mistake on that, so please don't quote me 100%, but it wasn't a brand new party as far as like, it's been around for several years, but he was the first of the PTI to be the president. And I really saw like peace with this man. What I hoped for was that one day Imran Khan and Narendra Modi would sit down and talk. Like, that's what I wanted more than anything, because we know when it comes to India and Pakistan, we know the history. We understand these people have been pitted against each other, fam, for so many years. Muslims go over there, Sikhs and friggin' was it Punjabs and Hindus go over there. I mean, they were divided on purpose to be at each other's throats with nuclear weapons. It's just, if they can get past that, wow. And I thought Imran Khan was that vessel to do so. So right now I am rooting for Imran Khan. I'm hoping that he gets back into office for whatever means, however they can do this. But it's going to be tough for him to break away United States foreign policy. And when they have a grip on that country, you know what I'm saying? Like, they have the military, right? Mm-hmm. They have the military under control of the West. So it's going to be hard. But the people are getting out in the streets. So maybe in the near future, we can see a real revolution for the Pakistani people.
I hope so. It looks like the people are out in the streets, and I think that's important for any sort of revolt.
Hey, Oz, I put the link in slide 73 to the Give, Send, and Go. If you can just grab that up, I'm going to read some super rays real quick because we have to direct people over to there. We haven't had a donation on that site in about 4 days. So we want to make sure we get the information out there because it's very important that we get on the grounds, ladies and gentlemen, in Colombia. I am so excited about this trip. A little nervous, yes, but still just so excited to go and do this type of work, and it's amazing. And I can't thank you people out there enough for putting us into place. So there it is, the Give, Send, and Go. You can see it right now. I'm going to put the link in the chat in both the YouTube and the Rockfin. And guys, if you got $1, if you got $2, you got $3, you got $4, whatever you got, help us out. Fam, you like the way I said $3?
No.
Okay, you didn't like it. She doesn't like what I said. Stop laughing, Oz. I'm putting it right now in the YouTubes. I just put it in the Rockfin, guys. Anything you can do to help. This is going to be amazing. Remember, we're talking about foreign policy and intervention. We're talking about the West taking these countries. What do they always say? The number one reason why they can do that. Oh, their elections were fraudulent. Well, we go there and we prove to you that they're not. Or if they are, they are. So it's very important for us to get over there, get on the ground, and to also observe elections and see how they work in a simplistic fashion. That's it.
Well, also the fact that this is an important election because a lot of Latin America is teetering on not just going along with the U.S. unilateral decisions. Recently, Mexico's government is not sending AMLO to this conference, right, where there's going to be a bunch of countries that were invited by the U.S., but Nicaragua, Cuba, Venezuela were not invited. And a lot of countries are starting to speak out at the very least and say, hey, it's not right for us to attend this if they're not allowed to attend. So there's a little bit of pushback. And with Colombia's always been a huge ally of the West and NATO and the CIA and the cartel regime, right? And so that is a huge issue right now. The government that's in power is a corrupt government. So while we're there, we're going to be dealing with how that looks versus, an Ortega government. And because the Ortega government is the one people say is a dictatorship, right? But now we're going to go to a place where the United States has been instrumental in keeping Colombia the way it is.
Mhm.
And we're going to really see what country is more of a dictatorship in terms of the elections. So I'm ready to go. I'm ready to see that. We're leaving soon,
Yeah.
next week, and we're excited, and we need all your help because, we do this with you guys. And as we were talking with Gordon, we're demonetized, we're constantly censored, we're constantly, not put in the algorithm at all. And so really right now, especially with everything that's happening, everything helps. So thank you so much for your support. If anything, if you could just share it and share the stream and really just do what you can to support us, even if it's not monetarily. We
Share it out
appreciate
there.
it.
Yeah, share it out there. Somebody else who can help out will help out. And we appreciate you doing that for us. I'm going to read some super rays. We'll get out of here for today. Pritchard Patermoster. Patermoster. Patermoster.
Name.
Patermoster. Patermoster. But Pritchard, thank you so much for the super ray. Putting $40 billion more debt on future generations, perhaps so no one can refuse the solution they offer, fam. CBDCs, etc. Fourth Industrial Revolution, running up the credit card because they're gonna pull the plug on the entire thing anyways. But why would anyone accept $1 now when they know its days are numbers, or buy assets with while they can, perhaps? Who knows? Zach Boyles, thank you so much. My boy, Zach Boyles, not my ball, Zach Boyles. Why do we continue to accept and perpetrate the new definition of the pandemic? We need a way to highlight this new definition every single time we say it. If we roll back the new definitions of the pandemic and vaccine, we wouldn't have a difficult time to continue having even a simple conversation about what's going on. It wouldn't make sense because it doesn't make sense. Zach, I'm with you because they keep doing this shit. To me, the most untalked about thing about the whole situation is where this son of a bitch came from. Omicron. Why isn't everybody focused on where this fucking son of a bitch came from? Both of them. Roy Emblem, thank you for the Super 8 contribution. That is so generous, Roy. That is so awesome. Thank you so much for doing that, man. A generous Super 8 contribution. It is always appreciated on the couch, fam. And Brian. Hi, Brian. Thank you for the Super 8, Brian. Don't talk to me. You're dead to me. That was my
Stewie just wants to be loved.
Hi, Brian. Oh, Brian.
Feels neglected.
Guys, we have, let me see, 65 thumbs up, and we have 100 and change people in here. Do us a favor, at least go over and hit the thumbs up. Hit the share button if you can.
We need likes on YouTube. We need likes on Rockfin. Just like it. I know it's annoying, but it does help with the algorithm. I hate all that stuff. I hate saying that stuff, but.
A special shout out and love to Mona. I want to let you know we love you, Mona, and we are here for you. We love you. We love you, Mona. Fucking Mona. Mona, you are a badass. Sleepy Josh, love you too, guys. Love you guys to death. We're here for you. If you ever need us, give us a call. And another special thanks to Steve Cutler Live and our homegirl, Lucky Burrito. Thank you so much. And Jilly Love for always helping out too as well with the moderation of the chat, fam. Anything else before we get on out of here today?
No, fams. I will be back on Wednesday. Pasta will be live tomorrow at our regular time with Neb.
With Neb. We'll talk about a little Kosovo and stuff. Ooh, we just got a little donation in there. Thank you so much, whoever just did that, guys. Anonymous donor, you are badass.
Badass. Thank you all, badass motherfuckers. Sorry, we're cursing.
Yes, I know.
Sorry, Pasta's mom. We're cursing.
Sorry, Mom. For Pasta Jardula?
From Fiorella.
Is there on those ones and twos, baby.
Combo out. See you next time.
See you in Colombia.
What?
Colombia.
Fight.